Hi, and welcome to the first episode of America Changed,
where we share inspiring stories of Americans overcoming adversity.
We're in beautiful Palm Beach, Florida. It is 4th of July weekend.
Right? It's a birthday celebration.
Yeah, our
as well.
guest's birthday is this weekend as well as 4th of July, so it's a big weekend.
Yes.
So let's just jump right in. Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself so that we know who you are.
Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me on the maiden voyage
Yes,
of America Changed.
Big day.
Big day, very exciting, and a beautiful backdrop.
Beautiful.
On
Absolutely.
location here in Palm Beach.
Mm-hmm.
But my lightning bolt moment was September 11th, 2001, and I was a student at Judson University, and we all remember.
We remember where we were
Yes.
that day.
Yeah, that's one of those things where it's a moment in time that
Yeah.
everyone knows.
Absolutely, and so as a student, my mother called my dorm room and she said, turn on the television.
Mm-hmm.
And I got up and I walked into the main TV room with my other college buddies, just in time to see the second plane fly into the World Trade Tower. And everybody was stunned.
Yeah.
And my first reaction, and I blurted it out loud, and I said, I'm going to do something about this.
Mm-hmm.
And at that moment, my life had purpose. And I knew that I wanted to make sure, whether it was a small role or a medium-sized role, I wanted to do something to protect our country.
And I think there was a lot of patriotism at that time,
Right.
and everybody was thinking,
Kind of coming together,
Yeah.
like, what are we going to do about this? Yeah.
Yeah, and so moving forward, I did everything I could to get to Washington, D.C. And I got a job interning for the Speaker of the House. And right after college, I moved to D.C. with only $72
Wow.
in my checking account.
Wow.
I didn't have a job, I didn't have a place to live. I knew I needed to be out there.
Yeah.
And
You just felt like so driven.
I was
to
so
get out there.
driven, and my parents thought I was crazy.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they had to buy my one-way flight because I could not afford a one-way ticket from Chicago to DC. I just made this abrupt decision and
Right.
said, in 3 days, I'm flying. And fast forward, divine intervention.
Mhm.
I met some really incredible people who shared very similar stories to mine. And I ended up getting a job at the Pentagon.
Wow.
And I interviewed for a job with the Office of the Secretary of Defense.
That's amazing.
And where was the job taking me? To Iraq.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Right in the center of everything.
Yeah.
right in the center.
Yeah.
And I remember the security to get me to the actual office took much longer than my interview. And I was intimidated going into this interview.
Yeah.
And they essentially asked me one question. You know where you're going, which was Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Why?
And
That's
I-
always
Why are
the
you
question
going?
you have to
Okay.
answer.
That's right. And I believe I've been preparing for this question since 9/11
Mm-hmm.
as a student. And without hesitation, without any practice, I said, I believe that we're waging the battle of my generation in the Middle East and particularly in Iraq.
Yeah.
And one day I want to look back and say I was a small link in bringing stability to a war-torn country. And so I think they were a little bit surprised.
That's
Right.
a powerful
Yeah,
why. When
yeah.
we think about what our why is and why we're doing something, that the underlying meaning behind it, that's important.
And 3 weeks later, I was on my first trip into Iraq.
Mhm.
I took a total of 14 deployments in combat
14.
between 2007 and 2010.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in Saddam Hussein's palace. Used to watch
Oh.
movies in his home theater.
Oh my God.
Swim in his swimming pool. It was
That's
a very,
insane.
it was a very surreal experience.
Right.
It tested me. I was scared to death. It was the first time that I called home crying
Mm.
because there was, in the spring of 2008, we were under constant rocket and mortar attack, 25 attacks per day,
Mhm.
morning and night.
When you
And-
face your fears, though, you get stronger, and I'm sure it gave you a great experience that you could use elsewhere
For
in
the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That's right.
Honestly, yeah.
And that little voice in the back of my mind was, don't forget the pledge you made on September 11th.
Mm.
Coming back to that why.
Yeah.
Ooh, I love that.
And so I fought through it. And it's given me incredible strength. And we all face adversity. And it kind of aligns with what a good friend asked me one day at lunch. Are you comfortable with your destiny?
Ooh,
That's
are you
so
comfortable
powerful.
with your
Are you comfortable with your
destiny?
destiny?
Love
That's-
it.
Yeah, that's a good question to answer.
If I ever write a book, I think that's probably the title.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be
No-
a bestseller.
Nobody steal that title.
Next to the Bible will be the greatest selling book in the
Next to
history
the
of the
Bible.
world.
Naturally, of course.
But it's interesting, and the whole point is that no person is insignificant. No job, no role. You could be a leader of your family or your household. You could be a leader in your community, locally, nationally, internationally. Every person is important.
Right.
And I loop it back to my own home state of Illinois, land of Abraham Lincoln. And it's interesting, a book that I would encourage you to check out is called Lincoln's Melancholy. And it's how depression fueled a president's greatness. And we all know that Abraham Lincoln suffered from depression, and he was suicidal throughout many periods of his life. And when he was having those dark moments, his friends would hide all sharp objects from him.
Yeah.
And one morning, he woke up, and his friends were there, and he didn't commit suicide. And they asked him essentially this question, why did you commit suicide? And his response was so profound. He said, because I haven't done anything in this life to be remembered by.
Wow.
And so the story is how his depression really fueled his greatness, that drive, that fire and ambition. And you look at the bookends of his life. When he was a little boy, his mother used to have dreams. And she'd wake up and say, Abraham, I don't understand this. One day, 1,000 angels are going to be dancing on your grave. He fights through adversity, fights through his depression, becomes president of the United States. And as a young boy, he felt like he was a slave because his father would send him to do very hard work. And at the end of the day, with bruised and bloodied hands, he'd have to give his father all the money that he earned.
Oh,
Wow.
And so he always said, I too was a slave. I was a slave to my father. And when he had the chance as president of the United States, he freed the slaves. And when he took his last breath in the Peterson House across from Ford's Theater in D.C., his Secretary of War uttered the words, now he belongs to the ages. And so I just think it's so profound and a phrase that I use constantly in my own life, where regardless of whatever the circumstances are, good moments, bad moments, dark moments, are you comfortable with your destiny?
Wow, that's a great question to ask.
Right.
So, are you comfortable with your destiny? We know that 9/11 changed the world, it changed America,
Right.
and it obviously changed Mark's life and had him answering that question. So that's the question we want to leave you with today.
Right. Take a look at your life and decide if you're there, and if you're not, what can you do about it?
And remember that fear and depression and adversity can actually fuel you to do great things. So don't let those negative things stand in your way.
Right.